Okay, good morning. My name is Tracy Holly. I am the Bureau Chief for Accountability Reporting. I have been in the office for about 16 years and have been focused mainly on school grades to start off with, but with a greater focus on BAM in the last about 3 or 4 years. And today we're going to talk about some accountability updates. First, we'll go over updates for this current year, 2021. Including the emergency order. And then we will get into updates that are coming for the 2021-22 school year. And then a little bit about our applications. And then we will get into the key formats and database elements that are used for accountability. Okay, and start off with the emergency order. Number 2021 EO02. Per emergency order number 2021 EO02, school districts or charter school governing boards may apply to the department to opt in to have one or more 2020-21 school grades or school improvement ratings officially recorded and reported for all statutory purposes, except as provided in statute for any school that tests 90% or more of its eligible students within 30 days after the release of all state testing data. Any school district or charter school governing board may apply to the department to opt in to have one or more 2020-21 school grades or school improvement ratings apply for statutory purposes that are associated with school grades or ratings. Process for opting in. As a reminder, FLDOE order number 2021 EO01 issued on February 15, 2021, extended the testing windows and modified the release dates of the results. Per the order, results for grade 3 will be made available no later than June 30th. As you all know, they were released a few weeks ago. Results for remaining assessments, FSA and EOCs, will be made available no later than July 31st. Once all necessary assessment data are available by the end of July, the department will provide school districts with an initial calculation without the assignment of a grade or rating, which begins the 30-day opt-in review application period. In order to make an informed decision during the 30-day review period on whether to opt in, districts will be provided with the following: school grades, district grades, school improvement rating spreadsheets without the assignment of a grade or rating, which include percent tested, percent of total possible points earned, and the value for each component. In addition, the student level data files, the INDV files, used in that calculation. In addition, during the 30-day review period, districts will have the opportunity to review their data and provide any necessary information to ensure the accuracy of the match of student membership records to student assessment records. As per FLDOE order 2021 EO02 for school grades, only schools that test at least 90% of their students are eligible to request to opt in. For any school that applies to opt in and tests at least 95% of its students, their application will be presumptively approved. For schools that test at least for schools that test at least 90%, but less than 95%, analyses will be conducted to determine that the performance of the school as calculated accurately represents the progress of the school. For an alternative school to opt in for a school improvement rating, the minimum threshold is 80% tested as provided in state law. If no action is taken, no grade or rating will be assigned. Grades or ratings will only be assigned to those who request them and are approved. The 30-day review application period to opt in will serve the purpose of the traditional appeals period and spring assessment matching window. The process that ensures the accuracy of the match of student membership records to student assessment records. The 30-day window will open with a memorandum to superintendents and access to the data described in this presentation necessary to make informed decisions. By late August or early September, final grades and ratings for those who request them and are approved are expected to be published. Performance data for all schools will be posted on the Know Your Schools FL.org portal, but grades or ratings will only be assigned for those who opt in and are approved. VAM. Since amended in 2017, state law made VAM scores purely optional for use in teacher evaluation. Per state law, the performance of students component of an educator's evaluation, which remains a requirement, is to be comprised of data and indicators of student performance as determined by each school district. Per FDOE order number 2021 EO02, 3-year aggregate VAM scores will be provided to districts, including the most recent 3 years for which data are available. And to provide maximum flexibility, additional VAM scores based on 1 or 2 years of data will also be provided. As always, districts are under no obligation to use these data in teacher evaluations. VAM scores are expected to be available in mid-September. Graduation waivers reporting code. Per FDOE order number 2021 EO02, districts may waive on a case-by-case basis the Algebra 1 and or 10th grade ELA assessment requirements for students who are otherwise expected to graduate in the spring of 2021 and whose high school record establishes a comparable level of achievement. For these students, the same reporting code used for similar waivers last year, WCO for K-12 students and W60 for adult high school students, should be used again in Survey 5. The definition of these codes will be updated to reflect the language in FDOE order number 2021 EO02. A memorandum from Chancellor Oliva to superintendents was sent was sent on Friday, May 7th, 2021, announcing this information. So these are the key things to take away for MIS contacts. Graduation codes WCO and W60 are available to use for the 2020-21 graduates, following the same policies as 2019-20. Results for grade 3 assessments have been made available. The deadline for that was June 30th. That was met. The results for the remaining assessments, both FSA and EOCs, will be made available no later than July 31st. School grades and school improvement ratings will be released later and only for those that opt in. VAM scores will be released in mid-September and are still optional for use in district teacher evaluations. There will be no VAM scores for 4th grade teachers. Know Your Schools Florida will be updated for all schools. And for more information, more details on FDOE order number 2021 EO02, please visit the department's coronavirus webpage listed below. Those slides are given along with a couple others and some Q&A that I recommend that if you haven't looked at, that you go watch that webinar as well. Any questions? I may or may not be able to answer them, but if you have questions on what I've just read, we can see if I can answer them. Yes. Well, hold on. If you'll wait for the microphone, we got to make sure that the recording hears your question.
So our 30 days starts when you send us the data, not when scores are released.
Correct. So we will, once we do our calculations and have the files described in the previous slides, we will produce those, make them available for you, and a memorandum will go out from Chancellor Oliva to your superintendents. The moment it goes out, we will then forward it to our accountability contacts.
10% tested is included in that.
Yes, percent tested. It will be the Excel, like if you go look at that Excel file right now, the only thing that won't be on there is the grade assignments. The rest of the stuff will be there. Any other questions? Okay, with that, I will move on. So now we're on to accountability changes for 2021-22. We'll talk about the graduation rate cohort build, the clock hour dual enrollment, and the armed forces qualification test. So as you all know, with the student database formats changing to having the FLEID be the key identifier and no longer reporting the student ID and the alias the way that it has been in the past, we had to create a new way to build our, to do our graduation rate cohort build. So it's now based on the FLEID as a key identifier. This new build reduces the amount of possible changes that districts will have to make on the cohort corrections process. It will also reduce the number of students in your unadjusted cohort. So you will see a lot less students in your files. How many of y'all, we've provided the 3-year prelim files. How many of y'all have actually looked at those yet? Okay, so we've got a couple people. I know some districts use them, some districts don't, but so you should have noticed that there's a lot less kids that are in the file that don't get into. So your W3As, you should have a lot less W3As in your file, which are the withdrew to another district, because we found them in the other district and put it in that district. So that's one of the big changes we made with this. So it reduces the number of corrections that you'll have to make in the fall. We are still using the federal uniform graduation rate methodology. So all the same business rules on who gets included are still in place. And here we go. This is a review of what the federal uniform graduation rate requires. All students have to be accounted for. Only standard diplomas are included in the numerator. Your WCO and W60 will again be considered a graduate. It does not remove transfers to adult education programs. Those remain in the last school they were with. And it assigns DJJ students back to their most recent Florida public high school. Now on to clock hour dual enrollment. Beginning in the 2021-22 calculation of school grades, we will be including clock hour dual enrollment as an option for your graduates to count in the numerator for the college and career acceleration component. So previously, we only included AP, IB, dual enrollment for college credit, industry cert, and ACE. And so this is a new way for students that may not have those other acceleration measures to be counted positively in the component. If a graduate receives credit or completes 300 hours or more of clock hour dual enrollment, then they will be considered positively in the acceleration component. This will be in effect, not for the school grades that we're going to release this summer, but the following, which is actually your current graduates, the kids that are graduating now. And so we will not have the full impact of this. The first year that we do it, so when we release grades next summer, we will only be including clock hour dual enrollments that occurred in the 2020-21 school year for those that graduated in the 2021 school year. Each year, we will look at an additional year for those graduates for that year until it becomes in full effect for the 2024-25 school grades calculation. So the implementation of this is kind of a rolling implementation. The list of clock hour dual enrollments that we will be using must appear on the approved course list. A new rule was created and approved by the board in June that identifies which courses are approved to use. They also must be in the same program area. So if you've got clock hour dual enrollments that aren't worth 300 credit hours, you've got to have multiple in that same program area in order for it to count. Again, if you have questions about the list, or anything along the lines that's related to the courses in the list, you can reach out to the Division of Career and Adult Education, and they will be able to answer your questions concerning the specific courses. Yes. Okay. 1 second.
And you may not know the answer, but do we have an idea if the list is going to be reviewed annually?
So I do know that the CAPE industry certification list is reviewed annually.
Right.
I do not have the answer. I believe so, but don't hold me to that. Reach out to the Division in Career Adult Education to confirm, but I believe it will, because I know courses change, like the dual enrollment changes annually. So I would reach out to them to confirm, but I believe it will change annually.
Yeah, because the course that we were hoping was on there was not on there this year. So.
Yeah. Yep. Well, reach out to them and work with them on that. Yes, we got another question. So this would not be on the, you asked me a direct question, so I'm going to give you the direct answer. So the place that you would traditionally be able to make additional matches are on the College and Career Acceleration application. However, you can't add any additional things that you didn't report. You can only match what you've already reported. And if you're using the same FLEID on Survey 5 that is used on, basically your graduates, then there's nothing for you to do because we've already matched that information. So one thing that will be going out in the next couple weeks is an email letting our district accountability contacts know that because of the increase in data accuracy for the College and Career Acceleration data, so the AP, IB, ACE dual enrollment, we have had one district who has used the application consistently the last 3 years. The rest of the districts have only used, we've had maybe 4 or 5, very few districts are even using that application, and they're only using it to change maybe 1 or 2 or 3 kids. So what we are planning on doing is canceling that application. Now, so that's a lot less work for you all, a lot less work for us. So what that means is for things that when we give you the College and Career Acceleration INDV file and you see that there's something that didn't get matched that you wanted to get matched, or there's additional information, we would now review that during the appeals process. We also have some time between when we give you that file and when we actually release. So those type of things, like, will you have a chance to correct it? Those type of things will be able to be done during or submitted for requests during the appeals process when we actually implement this. But the College and Career Acceleration application, it's a lot of work for us to get that up and running. And you all have done such a phenomenal job at reporting your acceleration data that's used for the College and Career Acceleration component, that we feel that the amount of changes that couldn't be made should be done through the appeals process.
So is there any way that we can get a prelim file?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
So what that process right now, what we normally do is, I believe Justin and my team provide you all with files on ShareFile during the Survey 5 reporting. We will be doing that with this information as well. I'm not sure how it's going to look because we need to, because you've got that, there's that 3-hour component. Or excuse me, 300 clock hour dual enrollment. So we will provide something for you during the Survey 5 reporting. And then we will be able to provide the actual grad rate and College and Career Acceleration INDV file earlier. We've provided it early this year. We will provide it ahead of time as well next year, so that you will have plenty of time to review it.
So one last question. So when you reference the appeals, are you referencing the school grade appeal, or are you referencing that we should be doing the appeal for the graduation rate?
So it would be the school grades appeals, because you can't, right, because you can't technically appeal grad rate.
Well, I just wanted to clarify
Yes.
that, because it made it sound like there was a new process.
No.
coming, and that was helpful. Okay, thank you.
No. Okay, any other questions about clock hour dual enrollment? And you also, our plan was to send out an email in the next couple weeks, but I couldn't answer that question without telling y'all what was going on. So we should be sending out an email to the district accountability contacts, letting them know about the application being canceled. I can see some of my contacts in here too, so it's first. Okay, now on to ASVAB and JROTC. So as you all know, a bill was passed, not this last session, but before, that allows us to include the Armed Services Qualification Test Score as an option for, as a way to get College and Career Acceleration credit. This will begin with the school grades released in 2023. So currently, this Survey 5 coming up for 2021, you all are not able to report the ASVAB assessments. However, that's one of the things that has changed is in 21-22, you will be able to report this information on Survey 5. So the criteria is that a graduate must earn an Armed Services Qualification Test Score that falls within the Category 2 or higher on the Armed Services Vocational Aptitude Battery Assessment, which is a score of 65 or higher. They must also have at least 2 credits in JROTC courses in the same branch of the armed forces. So this will be implemented in the 2022-23 school grade cycle, which is the 2021-22 graduates. Let's see, I think it's on, there we go. Okay, so as I mentioned, you all, the districts are responsible for collecting these scores and reporting them on Survey 5, starting with 2021-22 Survey 5. You'll be able to report, if you all look at Appendix L, ASVAB's been on there for a while, but there is now a specific one that is for the Armed Forces Qualification Test Score. It is the content code QZ. And so that is the one we're looking for. And it is on the student assessment format. Now, those y'all know that student assessment format, my understanding, you can only report that single year. You can't report prior test scores. So what we're going to do is that if you've got a 2021 graduate that is in the cohort and is in that college and career acceleration component that took the Armed Forces Qualification Test Score, meets the JROTC qualifications as well, but they took the test, say this year, you all wouldn't be able to report that. However, you will be able to submit that to us during the appeals process. And so until we have 4 years of reporting on this, you all will be able to submit those test scores that you can't report to us during the appeals process. And so if it makes a difference in the grade, then that is something that we would expect you all to appeal. Yes, we got a question over here. If you'll wait for the mic, please.
So is there a specific timeline for the courses to be taken in the test? So let's say, for instance, we have students that are going to be graduating in the 21-22 cohort. They took ROTC, maybe their freshman, sophomore year, has been doing dual enrollment. Can they now take the test as seniors and we can report them, or do they have to be enrolled in the courses the year that they're taking the test?
So I do not know if there are any restrictions that ASVAB or JROTC put on when they can take the test. As far as, and so if there, I would look into that and see what they recommend. Because if they say the test has to be taken within the same time as the courses, that I don't know.
We have students that take the exam but aren't enrolled in ROTC programs.
Got it.
They allow for testing outside.
Okay, great. We will accept anything that happens within that 4 years. So if the first 2 years they take the courses and then the senior year they take the test, if they qualify, then that's what we're looking for. So we do not put restrictions on that as long as it's, now if they do something middle school, that's not going to count. It's got to be within the 4 years of that cohort.
Okay, so can you repeat what you just said about testing data in the current year? So starting next year, we'll report ASVAB scores.
Yes.
And then we need to track for the next 4 years, those students that have got a qualifying ASVAB score and.
No, so in 2021, you'll report the tests that you've got for all the kids that took the test at that point. Those, and we'll use that for the graduates. The implementation of this, anything that happens outside of that reporting year, like next year, you'll be able to report you'll be able to report the next year. And so we'll have 2 years of data for the following year's graduates. And so like with the clock hour dual enrollment, it takes a while to implement the full 4 years. This will take a while to implement the full 4 years. However, because this is a specific assessment that has had, it's like, there's nothing new about that assessment. There's nothing new. That's the category 2, it's existed. We are allowing that assessment to be retroactive. So if you've got a graduate that's graduating in the 2021 school year that took the test last year and meets the JROTC requirements, you can appeal that information.
So you won't track them and capture them in the acceleration. We'll have to do that through the appeal process.
Only for those for which you have not been able to report the data for.
Okay.
Okay, so a follow-up question. And I understand the rollout. So we have a lot of students that actually take the JROTC, that weren't included. We were one of the districts that was fighting for the JROTC to be included in the college and career acceleration, I will tell you that. And I think it's a great thing. However, what I'm concerned about is having to have all of those appeals.
Okay.
So at survey 5, we can only capture those students that are 12th grade students that have taken the test during the 21-22 school year, correct?
Yes.
So during this survey 5, we will have to report those kids, correct?
The 2021-22 survey 5. You can't,
So it'll be
right,
next year's.
right, next year's.
Next year's, so it'll be the 22, the
Yes.
summer of 22.
Yeah.
And then we will report just those kids that took it in senior year. Anybody else that has taken it, that graduating class that took it in 11th, 10th, and et cetera, we would have to then appeal if it matters.
Yes.
Makes a difference with your
Yes.
college career acceleration.
Yes. Now keep in mind, you only have to do that if they aren't taking any other acceleration measures. You can't get multiple credit. So for example, we were talking over here about a kid who took JROTC courses in freshman and sophomore year and then took dual enrollment. Well, if they got a C or higher on dual enrollment, you don't need their JROTC because it's not going to add any points to that. So it is going to whittle it down to only those that don't have any college and career acceleration credit. But you'll also have the INDV file earlier. So, I mean, that file, normally we have that file, the application normally opens in February. So instead of an application opening, you would get that INDV in February. So you'd have plenty of time to review those that don't have acceleration credit.
Just keep in mind that the districts that have a low socioeconomic high schools with high number, that have those programs in it, those kids are only taking, that's their college and career acceleration. So when we looked at our numbers, that's one of the reasons we pushed so hard for the JROTC to be included, because it made a difference in some of our schools, because it is indicative of what's going on.
Yeah, and we do have, right, so we have the JROTC information because that's been reported for courses. So if there's something that we can do, possibly provide a file that says, here are your kids that don't have college and career acceleration, that do have the 2 years of JROTC in the same branch, that would probably be helpful, is to have you all whittle through. So that is something that I can reach out to my staff. Now y'all are going to go email them today and my staff's going to be like, wait, what did she promise? So give me about a week to, before you start emailing my staff about it, so I can let them know. But that is something that we should be able to do fairly easily, even if it's just put the JROTC courses on the IMDb file. So that's something that we can do.
Thank you. That was very helpful.
Okay.
Excuse me. For survey 5, we usually report like 3 tests: the ACE, the IB, and the IB. And this does have a corresponding funding. If the student passes this test, would it be like this too? Like
I do not know. For funding, you would need to talk to finance and operation. I'm not aware of how the funding works for those.
Okay.
Okay, moving on to the next slide. I think this is what y'all really want to see. Here's contact information. So I did some digging. If you don't already have a contact and a way to receive the specific Armed Forces qualification test score for your entire district, you can reach out to Erica Sullivan, who is a ASVAB Career Exploration Program contact that I found. I was excited because when I reached out to her, she knew exactly what I was talking about, and said there is a process as far as like the districts can make a formal request, tell her what you need, because tell her, what you're looking for, the statute, the rule, and they will be able to provide you with a list of schools in your district, like you provide her, hey, I need the ASVAB scores for students in these schools, and she'll be able to provide that back to you. But they can only do it at the district level, and the main office is the only one that can provide a district file to the district. That is the information I have. Some of you all may already have gotten this under control, but this is the help that I can provide.
So we should probably contact her now and try and get these scores for this year and last year, and the year before.
I would recommend doing that, yes.
Okay, thanks.
I do know from what I've researched, it's my understanding that some of the schools actually do receive the information, like on a printout or things like that. But this is a way for you to get your entire district's information. And so make sure that when you talk with her that you're requesting that Armed Forces Qualification Test score that can be used to determine whether or not the student falls into category 2.
What years do you think we should request?
I would request this year and the previous 2 years.
Tracy, I'm going to ask this question, I'm sure you've already asked her. Is there a way that similar to SAT and ACT, you guys can request that information straight to you to load it in, so we don't have to do it 70 times? Thank you.
So my understanding is she will only provide these to the districts. And so that is the route that we're going. It is also, we used to, I don't know, how many of y'all have been around since we started using AP, IB, and ACE? Okay, so y'all know how when we got the information from the actual vendors, it kind of got messy. And so now that you all have that and you all are able to report it to the district, it's a lot cleaner. And so while sometimes it may seem easier for us to get it, it becomes a lot cleaner when you all get it and report it to us, because then you are telling us which kids meet these criteria. Okay, any other questions on ASVAB? Okay, so here's the timeline slide that talks about ASVAB and clock hour dual enrollment. Clock hour dual enrollment will start its implementation into school grades with the summer of 2022, and will have a rolling implementation with full impact in 4 years. The ASVAB will start reporting with the 2021-22 school year. It will show up in school grades for the summer of 23 and the students will be appealable for the next few years until you're able to report all 4 years. We did do rule development workshops. Rules were passed that now include this. So if you go look at our school grades rule, it's in there. So we will start these two over the next couple of years. Now on to our applications. So I have college and career acceleration up here because I wasn't planning on announcing its removal yet. But again, I was going to do this big email like next week when I got back to the office. So that application will no longer be there. How many of y'all work on these applications? Okay. So those of you that don't, your district accountability contact is responsible for this. They may ask for help in one way or another, but basically we get survey data, we put it out on these applications, and districts are allowed to provide additional information that lead to a match, provide updates on withdrawals that happen after survey 3 and before testing, provide information on enrollment for EOCs as far as a kid withdrew from an EOC. And then of course the adjustments that can be made to the graduation rate cohort corrections. With this application, there is a lot of leeway as far as including kids that are mid-year promoted or removing kids that should be in the next year's cohort. So there's a lot more leeway with graduation rate because that's a over 4-year period of time that we're combining data from those 4 years. And there are some things that we can pick up and some things that we can't. So there's a lot more things to do with that application than there are in the others. Okay. Let's see. The assessment or the accountability match process is one in which that actually isn't an application. That is during the survey reporting period for survey 2 and survey 3. We provide files to the accountability contacts that basically tell them, these are the kids we're going to include in accountability. These are the kids that we dropped because they didn't have a course, or they withdrew, or they didn't have a matching district of instruction or and district of enrollment. So we provide a whole bunch of information that hopefully you all get back and say, okay, I need to make these, you know, they could come to you and say, hey, why didn't this kid have a course? Oh, okay, yeah, we forgot that. Let's put this in here. Or how did it get missed? I don't know. But hopefully, ideally, it helps you all with reporting accuracy of survey 3 and survey 2 for the purposes of accountability. Okay. Roster verification tool is another one that we have, another application that we have. Florida statute requires districts to provide instructional personnel with the opportunity to review their class rosters. This tool is the state's way of assisting in that requirement. Some districts use it, some districts don't. It is eventually used for, if a district chooses to use it, it is used for our final VAM files. If the district chooses not to use it, we use final survey data for VAM. We do this twice a year, once with survey 2 and once with survey 3. Anything that a district, so if a district chooses to use RVT, any changes that are made in RVT, if they need to be made on the actual survey, you still have to make the change on before final survey window ends. The RVT does not talk to final survey data. Let's see, whichever method is chosen, whether you choose to use final data for VAM files or RVT for VAM files, that's what we end up doing. Andre mentioned this morning about some applications that are not in SSO. This is one of them. This is one that we are working to, we've got a whole development of how we want to revamp this application. How many of y'all actually work with the VAM files? Okay, so y'all are familiar with these Excel files and the text files that we get back from you outside of the RVT process. We are hoping to revamp this application such that all of those additional processes that happen after RVT are included in the application itself. And so you would be able to do them so that final student file that you get, which it won't happen this year, but we're hoping for the following year to be able to incorporate this into SSO and make it a lot easier for districts to do some of the other processes as well. But so 21-22, the school year, so we've got at least one more round of it the way it is. They're doing some change. Andre talked about some SSO stuff that's going on. We got to wait until some of the stuff that he's doing first. And once he gets that done, then we'll be able to move this into SSO. Okay. And when we do, all those, give us an Excel file, give us a fixed width text file, all that will be incorporated into the application. Now on to the key reporting formats and database elements that are used for accountability. So we've got VAM, we've got school grades, we've got school improvement ratings, and we've got DJJ accountability ratings. So we've got basically 4 different accountability systems that we get survey data from. We use our application, or we pull survey data for these applications and for our calculations. Am I over time?
Yeah, just by like, I think 2 minutes.
Oh my, okay. So I'm gonna run through these really quick. So our cohort grad rate builds, we use 5 years of data with 5 different formats to be able to build that single file. We've listed them out here, so please do pull down the PowerPoint, and you'll be able to see each one lists. This is all survey 5, so graduation rate is all survey 5. And so it lists each different format and the different database elements that we are pulling that get incorporated into this. Some of the things like federal state indicator, you'll see, okay, well, what does the homeless student identification have to do with grad rate? Well, we have to actually report this subgroup to the feds. So some of this stuff that you'll see that you're like, well, how's that used? We have to report it. We have to report it in some way for federal reporting. College and career acceleration, you can see student assessment, there's red, this is where ASVAB will be reported. Then we've got the accountability match process. We've got student demographic, our exceptional student format, English language learners information, prior school status, student attendance, and federal state indicator status. We also use student course schedule. DJJ accountability ratings. I know DJJ is really starting. We finally released our first round of official ratings recently. Here are the database elements that we use. So if you're not familiar with that, take a look at these next few slides when you get a chance, and it will, I went the wrong way. It will give you information on, we have to have accurate data for accurate accountability purposes. So this gives you what you need. This is what we need to be accurate. This is what we are expecting to be correct so that we can have correct accountability calculations. Then we've got the VAM. This is for the data that we pull that's used for RVT, and then our final match, final VAM match files. And here are resources. So if you have any questions, please reach out to my office. Here's a whole bunch of resources, y'all. If you want to look at a school, Know Your Schools Florida is amazing. It's got lots of great information. It's got some great fun visuals too. So if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me, to my staff. We'd be happy to answer any questions you've got.